Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? So I went with the Joe Trainer look. I'm not one to stand behind a podium. What they use, what they said in the Marine Corps, right? It's hard to hit a moving target. So here I am. Give me 1 second. If anybody wants to know what I'm looking for, I'm looking for weapons and projectiles. All right, I think we're good. So the time has come. It's July. It's coffee with yours truly. Here I am. For most of you, I think I've had some pretty good interactions with some, questionable, but that's okay. That's life. So I'm going to go into my presentation, do a little talking. The hard part is I wrote the presentation and I have no idea what I wrote. So years ago I could have blamed it on the alcohol, but I don't drink anymore. So now it's all about me. I blame it on myself. So again, welcome. Good morning. My name is Anthony. For those who don't know, I am the VP of Culinary. What does that mean? It's a whole lot of words that means that I'm responsible for everything. So just to go ahead and start it off with, down. Oops. Sorry, got it upside down. Look at that. So everybody's pretty familiar with server stance, okay? I've had conversations with many residents. Some agree with it, some don't agree with it. That's really up in the air for everybody to decide. Some residents walk right by it, don't press the button, send me a message on Cubico or to my email saying I don't like it. The scores are what is recorded. We do a pretty good job, I believe. We don't have one in JJ's, but we have them in Grill and we have them in Cranes. And overall, we've scored nothing less than a 95 for the last 7 months that I've been here. How did we get there? So since I've been here, there's a few changes that has happened. Some of you might have experienced it, some of you haven't. One of the things that we focused on was service. When I get to my slide, I'll tell you what the evaluation of my position really was when I got here. Servers, they're the first line of defense, so to speak. But we started focusing on them, giving them some direction. It was more taking the whole IHOP, hey, what can I get you? Out of the equation and give it more of a personable, hey, Mr. Bondour, what would you like to drink tonight? Bond. So looking at it that way, we utilize our managers on the floor, giving it more of a presence. That way you can see them. They're physically there. Every step of it so far is part of development. Chefs have come to the table now. Several of you might have experienced that. Coming to the table and asking you, hey, what can I get you? I'm sorry about this. How can I fix this? That was part of something that we started looking at going, if there's an issue with the food, who's better equipped to deal with it? Servers, the house managers, or the chefs, the ones that are looking at the food? So we really tried to encourage them to go out to tables and see what the root of the problem is and whether or not they can get something different for you. Hot food. That is something that has been a thorn in my side for a while since I've been here. I think we've improved on it, except the other thorn in my side is going to be the vegetables. We're still a work in progress, and there's plans for that, and I'll get to that slide in a second. All right, so with every great building company, you have to start with the foundation. Without a strong foundation, there is no building. Without a strong foundation, there is no team. So we had to start with the basics, okay? And I had to look and see what I had to work with, what the materials were, and then look at building a team around what I was currently given, inherited, whatever you want to call it. So the foundation is really the key. Now, one of the parts that we looked at when I got here was uniforms. Why are uniforms important? I can tell you why it's important to me. A couple of different reasons. And I'm not even going to read from there. One, I walked into the kitchen, and I'll tell you what I saw. I saw a whole lot of people that I didn't know who was doing what. I didn't know. I didn't know who a dishwasher was. I didn't know who a chef was. I didn't know who a prep cook was. I didn't know any of them. But what do we give them when we give them uniforms? We give us a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging. On top of that, it looks good. It looks better. You know, we wanted to create that for them. So we wanted to give them that look. Some of the uniforms, I'll tell you, were pretty bad. Some of the servers in cranes had holes in their elbows. And that's what's coming to your table. Not acceptable. We all know that. That's not even a question. So I spent some money, got uniforms for them, gave the chefs some different coats to wear. And you can look up here, the look of Culinary. Some of them you might recognize, some of them you may not. There's a woman in a green chef coat down at the left bottom. Does anybody know who that might be? Not necessarily the name, but what does she do? Salad bar. Perfect. But you wouldn't have known that if she was in a different coat or not in a coat at all. There was employees that had their own coats on that had nothing on it. They had ones that were walking around in t-shirts. Sloppy. Just not a good fit. Now, them as people were fantastic and they worked really hard, but it's not a look we wanted. So we spent money. We gave the chefs white coats. We gave cooks blue jackets. We gave sous chefs black coats. And we gave JJ's a new look of all black. Now, trust me when I tell you this, I got a lot of hate mail for that. That's okay. That's okay. But we wanted to give it a different look. Now, in aspects, is JJ's different than Crane's? I get a yes, yes, yes. Okay. So, in essence, it kind of is. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be when it comes to service and food. Look, maybe, sure. And that's why we went with different color. Now, the food we'll get to here in a second. But we wanted to give them a little bit of ownership and give them something, and give them a feeling of belonging, okay? Because at the end of the day, what does the black coats want? What does the blue coats want? And what do the green want? The green want to get the blue want to get the black, and the black wants to get the white, okay? It's called development. At the end of the day, I'm looking for someone to take my job. We've all been in the position where, came to the realization that it was time to leave our current job, right? We all got there. We retired. We worked for companies for years on years, and then it came to the point that it was time to retire. But you spend so much time with that company, it was like a second home. Can we agree on that? So you don't want to just leave it to Joe Schmo just walking in the door. You want to leave it to somebody who knows what you're capable of doing and is going to take it to the next level and keep pushing it forward, right? So that's what I do, is I'm looking for that next person, because let's face it, I'm not going to be here forever, right? One day it's time for me to retire. I tried that once 2 years ago. It didn't work out too well for me. But that's the idea, progression. So I'm just going to go through this real quick, because I don't think that we really need to cover who is who in the culinary department. Does anybody not know who Dem is? my, how do I want to say that? The little fireball that runs around culinary department that I'm terrified of, that one, we all know who that is. And I will tell you on a side note, I would not still be here if it wasn't for her. And I'll say that again. I would not still be here if it wasn't for her. And this stays in this room, okay? We have this saying with Mr. Trainer, this is Vegas, right? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? So, and if she hears about this, I'll deny it until I walk out this door. But she is my rock. She really is. You know, the things that you don't see behind the scenes is I'm the VP. I make all the decisions, right? I make the decision, I stick with it. This is what we do. That is far from the truth. I'll tell you that. I may say something, and there's been countless times that she's like, "You're gonna do what?" And I said, "Well, this is what we're gonna do." And she'll look at me and she'll look up at me and say, "Only in your head are we doing that." And I'll look at her and I'll have that smug look on my face. And I said, "You want to take a bet?" And she'll say, "Yes." And that's when I know that it's terrifying at that moment, and I crumble. So there's a lot of disagreeing that we do, and that's okay. That's her job, is to question me sometimes, you know. But that's how we build success. Just having yes men, as they call it, doesn't make a business successful. Raven is the executive chef. Raven just came back from vacation, thankfully he did. I don't think I could lose any more hair trying to do his job and my job at the same time. That man has a job that I didn't fully understand until he came back. And while he was gone, I got the whole blunt of it. James, does anybody not know who James is? James is the chef over at JJ's. He is responsible for JJ's and the bistro. So he is our executive sous chef. So when Raven's not here, James is number one. We have 3 sous chefs. Jeff, which when I got here, they called him Jay. So Jay, Victor, and Tim. Everybody knows who Tim is in the grill, right? Yes, he's one of my sous chefs. Last but not least is Katie. Katie primarily is over at JJ's, but spreads her time out between different venues. Katie's our assistant restaurant manager. But then, I got a whole bunch more. Dietary supervisors. I have 2 of them. One of them is going to be over at Oak Haven. If you didn't know, I'm responsible for Oak Haven as well. Okay, so we had a cook here that did the food for AL, who went to college. She was in the middle of college on her own time, graduated with her CDM, became a certified dietary manager, and we promoted her to that spot at Oak Haven. So congratulations to her. Her name is Angela. Evelyn is our dietary manager here for AL and Oakview Suites. So I've got a pretty solid team so far. Right below that, we have Julie, Linda, Kayla. If you didn't know, Kayla is part of this group now too. And you got Stephanie. Stephanie's new to us. Stephanie's doing a fantastic job. And then below that, we have Leo. Leo you might see in Bay. You might see in the grill. He's actually he's the kitchen supervisor. So the hierarchy is now in place. Not too bad. All right, so we got some new hires, okay? This is something that we've been talking about for 7 months. House staffing. And everybody in this room can tell each other that it's been terrifying out there. It's been troubling. It's been so challenging. Well, we just hired 3 line cooks. Now, mind you, during this time, I've lost cooks. At JJ's, I lost 2, okay? I lost one that works grill and cranes, something that unfortunately wasn't in his control. He also worked Bay. But since now, I've hired 3 line cooks. We've hired 2 servers, Kyle and Anthony. Anthony has a different name. You'll have to ask him because in this department, there's only one Anthony, and that's me. Stephanie's been working manager shifts for us. She also primarily runs the events. So her first day here, we threw her into one of the events that was for celebration. She did a fantastic job. As who I am, I went and checked up on her just to see how she was doing. And I tell you what, without much direction, celebration was set up perfectly. So great job by her. Charles. Charles is a dishwasher that you may not have seen very often. He was up in JJ's, young guy, 19 years old, out of high school. To be honest with you, didn't have much direction. Didn't really know what he wanted to do. So we gave him an opportunity at JJ's to do salads. And he surprised us. And then he jumped behind on the fry station and did a really good job. And the thing that really got me was at the end of the evening, he looks at me and goes, "Is there anything I could have done better? Is there something I could have done differently?" And that proceeded to happen for 2 more nights. What does that tell me? Well, he's very passionate about what he's doing. He's invested. He cares about your experience, and he cares about what his food looked like. That's impressive at his age, okay? So we gave him an opportunity and said, look, we want to give you a shot at the bistro. Now, Jeanette did a great job making pizzas down there, but she went on to bigger and better things in her eyes. That's what she thinks. I'll let her have that one. Derek is not here right now. He may return possibly in October. So we have to make adjustments now. So Josh, out of all people, we never saw this coming. Everybody know Josh, the food runner. I don't know how this guy has so much energy. And if you didn't know this, he just had his 3rd child. 3rd child. So we had a discussion together, him and I, and we were talking. And he's like, is there any shifts I can pick up? Can I do anything else? Can I put the truck away? Can I do this? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I said, well, Josh, why are you asking this? What do you want? And he's like, out of all honesty, I need to make money. I said, okay. I said, well, what is your goal in life? I don't really have one. I said, okay, I can help you with that. I said, culinary. You ever thought about culinary? Well, I cook at home. It says different. When you take a job in culinary on a line, as a line cook here, it opens up doors to different restaurants. Now, we have some cooks that I've had cooks in my career that are now sous chefs, executive chefs, that started as cooks, making money now. So we gave him an opportunity in the bistro. And I'm telling you what, he has not disappointed. Neither one of them has. Just to give you an idea, numbers, real quick. Prior to the first menu change, we were averaging about 140 residents per week, the 4 days. We changed the menu that first time. We jumped up to 260. Good, not bad, not bad. Changed the menu for this last time. We are averaging 451 right now per week. It's a huge jump. And Josh and Charlie did it all by themselves with the food. Now, I got great people out front. Edison, who can say anything but great things about Edison? You got the little Kelsey, fantastic young lady. Kayla's down there busting, just going through everything the best she can. So it made it really easy to get 450 residents through there. Great job for them. Culinary staffing. So I kind of touched on it a little bit. Starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. I'll tell you this right now. I worked at a community in Lake Mary at the time it was called Oakmont Village. It is now called Grand Living. If anybody here has ever heard of it, I worked there. I've had restaurant manager, assistant restaurant manager, 3 cooks, lead server, and a server, all in the last 2 weeks knocking on my door. I worked there. They remember me and said, look, we don't want to work here anymore. We want to work at John Knox. So for some reason, one way or another, they're starting to see that we are a place they want to work. We are a place they want to be part of. The question is, will I have room for them? I think I will, because again, good people, when you look at it, hardworking, dedicated, passionate staff. Through my career, I've had superstar line cooks and people, servers, come into interview with me. Superstars, great resumes, worked at great fine dining restaurants, and just ultimate volume after volume. And I turned away every single one of them. Why? Because of arrogance. You can't be a superstar unless you take your team with you. And none of them, when I asked the questions, none of them got it right. What is your strengths? Everything. What are your weaknesses? I don't have any. Well, if you got another 10 hours, I'll tell you my weaknesses. If you got plenty of time, right then and there tells me you got nothing left to learn. This whole presentation, off the record, let me tell you, you know how many times it took me to get this presentation right? 6 times. And I don't even think it's right. Do you know who had a hand in this? Well, Sarah did. She had a little bit of hand in that one. Mr. Trainer did. Okay? Because he knows my struggles. I'm not good with this. I'm not good with this. Okay? If you didn't see me last week or the week before, I was in a chef coat some of the times. That's where I feel comfortable. Not here, but it's part of my responsibilities. So again, I have more to learn, and this is one of them. So we've got some great people. Does anybody ever remember, and I've said this before, remember that movie called Moneyball with Brad Pitt about the, was it Oakland A's? Okay? And the whole premise of the movie was, they could spend all this money and buy these high-priced players, but what did it really mean? And why did they go the direction of getting, the lower-cost players? Because they're base hitters. They get on base. Once you get on base, and you get on base, you get a run. So they built their whole team around that. And that's what we do here. I've got great people, great attitudes, passionate about what they do, and they care. So we're going to build our team around them. I don't need superstars. I already have them. We just need to develop them. We need to empower them to make decisions, to make choices, to give them a sense of ownership. That's what we're doing. So we're going to build this team around them. Let's see. What's next? Servers. So one of the things that we have here that I didn't feel was very pertinent in our operations was training. Now, when it comes to cooking, if I have to teach my cooks how to make eggs scrambled, we might have to have a little conversation off to the side. But service is a little bit different. Now, I'm not saying that cooking isn't easy. It's not. There's a lot of, aspects of techniques and ingredients and things like that. But servers, especially servers, when you're out in front of residents or guests that you bring to the restaurants, they need to be fine-tuned. So I've been working with Katie, and we currently had a trainer's manual, but I looked at it, and it really doesn't cover that much. So we really started diving deeper into it and creating more. So at first it was, let's make a training manual for JJ's. Well, why are we going to do that? So we're going to give training manual to JJ's and forget the rest of the venues? Makes no sense to me. So we evolved it again. So it's a training manual for servers that will cover every single venue. Because it's important. Because, we serve food over at JJ's, we serve food at Crane's. We serve liquor, beer, and wine at JJ's, liquor, beer, and wine at Crane's. So it shouldn't be different. Now, we haven't finished the fine touches on it, but we're getting there. Focus. So even though they've been here, we can say that, the servers that have been here, they don't need any more training, right? They're probably our worst culprits, to be honest with you. The new servers, that's the easy part. Why is that the easy part? Very simple. Especially, Mia, the little one, okay? First job, Kyle, first job. Anthony, first job. You know why they're great? Who said that? No bad habits. Perfect. No bad habits. You train them right the first time. That's what you do. The other servers, the ones that have been here for a while, you retrain them. There's nothing wrong with it. We're just taking a pencil and sharpening it a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with it, unless they don't want that. You know? So every department, no department is ever perfect, right? You know, everybody has bad eggs, apples, tomato. But every department does, you know, and the ones that we have seem to find their way out, and that's okay too. So we're going to focus on those, on the ones that want to be here and want to take that opportunity to be retrained. There's still points to learn. Kitchen. Hands-on. I have interviewed hundreds of chefs in my career, and every one of them says, I am a hands-on chef. What does that mean? They're in the kitchen, right? They're in the kitchen getting dirty. That's what they're doing, right? The majority ones that I've interviewed and hired, and trust me, I have made some big mistakes in my career. I've noticed one thing. They'll say I'm hands-on, but then I find them in the office. You can't manage from the office. That makes no sense. You're not there with your team. You know, that again makes no sense. You know, how can I expect somebody to do something I would do, right? That's why I try really hard to cook. And you know how many times I get kicked out of the kitchen? Every single time. James is a perfect example of hands-on chef. Because you don't see him, you don't get to see what he does, is we fight tooth and nail with each other to get him from behind the line. He spends the entire time JJ's is open cooking with the guys. That's hands-on, okay? So it's a hands-on approach. You can't manage from the kitchen. You can't see plates from your office. You can't manage from your office, and you can't see plates from your office. You can't taste the food. You know, fortunately, I was in my office, but yesterday when I got home, my wife laughed at me because I pulled out 4 tasting spoons out of my pocket. I do that quite often. I've got a whole stack of them. But the point is, you know, you should be touching the food, tasting the food, and working with your staff. That's what creates teamwork. That's why in a position such as mine, you know, you can command respect, right? Right? But is it really respect? No. They don't care. They're going to do what you ask them to do because they have to. That's not it. Years ago, I was asked a question for us veterans, okay? I was asked this, being a manager, a young manager. If you're at the base of a hill and there's a machine gun nest at the top, are you going to rush that hill, and are your men going to follow you because they have to or because they want to? And my answer was, because they have to, it's their job. And the response I got was, have you ever heard of friendly fire? Understood. So my whole thought of leadership changed at that moment in time, going, I want my staff to want to. And that's the development part that I want my managers to understand. They want to lead from the front and say they do, but do they really lead from the front? Meaning, is your staff going to follow you because they want to or because they have to? Something to think about for them. So consistency is the key to element. We've had this discussion how many times? Some of you have had in my office with it. You know, we've sat there and talked about consistency all the time, you know, and do we get it? Not all the time. No, we don't. We fall short. And it doesn't matter what venue we're talking about. And, you know, burgers are great in grill. A week later, burgers are terrible in the grill. Prime rib is fantastic. Now, it's service, food, it's great. Now it's not so great. Consistency. So consistency, you know, one of the things that I tell, and I've said this to several of you many times, is right now I'm on the struggle bus with this new POS system. We're getting there. Consistency comes from recipes. Start with the foundation, right? Start with the recipe and build from there. What we have right now is kind of a hit and miss because we don't have a system that actually provides recipes. Recipe books are kind of inconsistent, if you will. System that we have carries over 7,000 recipes. Nothing on the menu will be on the menu if there's no recipe attached to it. Recipes in the system will go from step by step. Add this, add this, add this, add this. That's where we build our success when it comes to consistency. So I can come and look, and I can pull up a recipe off any of the 4 screens in each kitchen, and I can digitally look at it and see if this is being done correctly. That's step 1. Go back to step 2 and 3, hands-on, presence, tasting spoons, looking at the food. It's one big circle. What areas am I, as a culinarian, responsible for? My department is responsible for every food and beverage portion of this community, with the exception of Majestic Oaks. I have absolutely nothing to do with Majestic Oaks except provide support for equipment if they ask, for this POS system, for new vendors if they need it. Other than that, Tina Musari, who's the CDM there, does a great job. And they don't, as it was so politely put to me, they don't need you. I said, okay. But in February, we assumed responsibility for Oak Haven. So when it comes to all IL venues, the Scoop, AL, Oakview Suites, Oak Haven, and am I missing one? Home deliveries, and all the employee meals that go down to the Scoop. That's what I'm responsible for, of course, with my team. Most of it, food is done by Raven. Dem leads the way with the servers. Okay, so if you look up there, we literally do 80 to 100 employee meals a day. So that kitchen's busy. Got a lot going on. In one kitchen, you have home deliveries, employee meals, AL, cranes, salad bar prep for events, prep for the line, and you have the bakery. It's one kitchen. All that happens all day long. What I have learned in culinary, now this is pretty important, okay? Okay, I'm gonna paraphrase this. What I've learned in culinary is simply this. Not everything works. Not everything's gonna work. Nope. And you are not gonna like everything. It's just how it ends up sometimes. I can hope for the best, I really can. And I put 100% into it, and my staff does, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna fall short sometimes. I really am. But that's part of culinary. That's part of business. That's part of taking a chance. You know, just taking a chance to see if something works. But here's what I need from the residents. Honest feedback. And when I say honest feedback or comments, honest feedback and comments is simply what I'm asking for is this. Well, food's terrible. Okay, well, help me out. Which food? Well, all of it. Okay, well, where? Was it in Cranes? Was it Grill? Was it an event? Was it JJ's? I need help. I need specifics. You know, those are things that help me out. I don't like the soup. Okay, which one? Well, all of them. Okay, well, that's a matter of opinion. I can take that and I can understand that. Or I don't like the cream soups. Great, not a problem. I can understand that. Oh, this such and such is terrible. Well, when did you order it? Well, I didn't actually order it. The person at my table did. Well, did you try it? Well, no. Well, how do you know it's terrible? It was somebody's perception. That's what it was. So when I get feedback like that, that doesn't help me because the resident can't specifically tell me why. Just one person didn't like it. Well, did they not like it because it was spicy, too much pepper, too much salt? But they don't tell the resident. The resident just voices it for the other person. Well, if the other person really felt that way, they could have told me. So those are some of the things I need help with when it comes to the feedback, because I need to know, because I can't fix it if I don't know what it is. And some things, let's be honest, I can't fix, So being different, I've started this 8 years ago when I got to senior retirement communities, even senior living, is the common thought process. And I've asked so many people outside communities like ours, saying, when you think of senior communities or senior living, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And they'll tell me, nursing home. Do you live in a nursing home? No, you don't. We don't live in a nursing home. But that's some of the ideas that are shared about among the community outside of us. So being different means I'm going to do something different. I'm going to change the way we do our food. I'm going to change the way we sell it. I'm going to change the way we plate it. I'm going to change. Those are things that we need to change, because I don't want to be like next door. I don't want to be like them down the street. What makes us different? Why do people want to live here versus the Mayflower? Why? What's different? I don't want to be the Mayflower. I want to be John Knox. I've been trying to get us into competitions too. Why? Because who doesn't want to be an award-winning community? Being different. 3 things I think are the most important thing in our community. 1 is care. Now, we're not only talking about medical. We're talking about, hi, how are you today? It's good to see you. How you been feeling? What can I do for you today? And it could be medical. 2, coffee. God forbid I take coffee from any one of you, right? I might as well not come to work. And the last one is food. So if you look at it, I have definitely 2 of the 3, but I have 3 as well. So those are things that we have to make sure that we spend majority of our time trying to get right. Hold on one second. Hi. Can you tell me what slide I'm on? Is it not on the screen? Oh, that's terrible. Who did I say that to? I'm going to run it right down to the second so I don't have questions afterwards. Here we go. Evaluation. We'll just jump along real quick. Evaluation. You're more than welcome to read the screen. I evaluated everything when I got here. Uniforms, food quality, our vendors, the sanitation, the health department's remarks, the way that we receive our orders, the orders times that they come in. There's so many things that go along with culinary that has to be evaluated to provide, a more positive energy, if you will. Even to the point that does my staff get along? Did Raven, James, and Dem, do they get along? That's key, because those are the ones I count on. If they don't get along, we're not going to do too well. So those are all the things that I evaluate when I got here. Menu development. So I will tell you this, and you can read this all day long. Fresh, flavorful, balance, listening to you, your feedback, popular items, keeping them, focus on quality, consistent variety. We have a lot of that. But menu development, and I know this for a fact, Raven, who is responsible for that, which I'm 100% here to help, spends almost 20 hours a week placing orders. That's half a work week. So on top of working with his team, tell me when he has time for R&D, research and development. 20 hours a week. Why do I know this? Because I spent the last 2 weeks doing that. So I spent 20 hours, half a week, doing orders, trying to fill in for his position, and trying to do my job at the same time. Not cool. Not cool at all. It took too much time. So, menu development, something we need to work on. Operations, sanitation, and food safety. We have visited 9 facilities so far, 3 of which you will never see in this community again. We looked at the operations, okay, how the workflow went. We looked at the sanitation, the how was it clean. We looked for inspectors. We looked for temperature, people taking temperatures. We looked for logs being filled out. Those are things we look at because at our age, we can't afford to make a mistake. And some vendors are out there just to push food out to make money, right? No, we got to be very careful. So you notice the one on the right? Yeah, there she is. Philosophy. Fresh, scratch, consistent. Those are three big words that you're just going to hear time and time again. Scratch kitchen, we have vendors that want to just bring us stuff, and here's a soup already made, here's a sauce already made. If we bought everything made, why do I need chefs? I don't. So we kick them out with that, and we start over again. Because it's called accountability. When we start buying product that is pre-made, we start buying soups and sauces pre-made, and there's nobody there to hold them accountable, it's going to continue. And we can't afford to let that happen. So going back to the 50s, now I know for a fact there's not one of us in this room that lived in the 50s. I know that for a fact. Not one of us. Some of you, I'm going to look for your ID to make sure you're at least 21, okay? So starting back in the 50s, when you talk about the evolution, back in the 50s, not that I was there, I'm sorry, but I wasn't, but looking back in history, a lot of food was made from scratch. Mom made it that day. You made it that day, right? It was made from scratch. Then you evolve a few years. Refrigeration, choices, expanded everything and let you bring in more variety so you weren't prepping the day of, but maybe the day before. Then we keep going into the 90s, and then the health kick started. Everybody wants to eat healthy. Yeah, great, love it. Then you go into the 2000s, right? 2000s started looking at farm fresh. Now, when you talk about the global, I missed that one. You talk about global, cuisines across the world became very popular back in the 90s, okay? Back in the early 2000s, one of the biggest trends that was here was sashimi. Sashimi is a style of sushi. I love sushi. Not everybody in here will like it, and I understand it. One of the biggest trends was sashimi-style sushi with using chicken, which is simply a piece of chicken sliced raw and put on rice. Biggest trend. We're not going to go there, don't you worry. But farm to table, I've talked to many farmers when I worked in Lake County trying to get that. It was very difficult, but we haven't forgotten that. We haven't got away from that. That's why the produce company that we have right now, we chose, because they do majority of that. And we'll touch on the lettuce here in a few minutes. And then, one of the things that we want to get back to that is still, important is creativity. Everybody knows Raven. Most of you have been to his events or the chef's table. He's very, very good. But again, going back to the amount of time it takes to order, he doesn't have all that much time. Imagine if he had that time, what he could do. I can. We're going to get there. So, if you talk about the evolution of food, it's still in play today. We still cook from scratch. We want the freshest, product available for us to purchase. We don't want frozen stuff coming in. We want fresh. Some of the places we visited was freshly cut beef, freshly cut pork, freshly cut seafood. Those are things that we're looking for. Fresh vegetables. And it's still, coming back to today, creativity. We want to give all that to our chefs because we want them to express themselves and be creative. Roles that food has on your life. Now, there's several. People love to eat. Come on, right? We all love to eat. But it brings us together. One of the things it does is bring us together. You sit with your neighbor at dinner, have great conversations. You meet new people. Those are some of the things. Food brings people together. It makes you happy. I know I'm happy when I got a full belly. I'm sure we all are. Current menus and challenges. I briefly touched on that. Some of the menus, if you look at, we do all these different cycles, right? Everybody know that? Every 6 weeks we change it for, items, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks. So at one point I counted up all the menus that we have. And I counted that I'm responsible for is 31 different menus. 31. So if today we have lobster tail on the menu, I buy lobster. Next week it's not on the menu, but I still have lobster because I better not run out, right? I still have lobster left over. I can't cook it from frozen state. I got to thaw it, right? Well, what happens to that lobster that's thawed and I didn't use? Throw it away? Oh, that's money. So what do? I wrap it up and I put it in the freezer, right? But then it takes 5 weeks for that lobster tail to come back into rotation. Does that make sense to anybody? Does that sound good to anybody? No. But if I had it on the menu all the time, you know that I'm constantly rotating it. I'm constantly serving it. And I'm not waiting 6 weeks. So say I spent $100 on this lobster tail that I have to put back in the freezer so I don't lose it. That $100 is going to sit there for how long? 5 weeks. Whereas I could take that $100, keep it in motion, okay, 30 at a time, 30 at a time, 30 at a time. That way I'm keeping a level par. I'm not over ordering. It's not sitting on the shelf for a long time. It's sitting there for a couple days until I rotate it. But now I got this extra money I can put somewhere else. Does that make more sense? It does to me. So we have a lot of inventory questions that I have. And now that Raven's back, we're going to dive into them a little more. Nothing on his side. It's not his fault. It's the way the menus are. So we're going to look at standardizing some menus. Oh, this is a good one. Does anybody have any questions about prime rib? Not one? No? Because I get a lot of Cubico suggestions about it. I wanted to bring this up, okay, and I had this ready for the last couple weeks. There's been a lot of issues with our prime rib. Can we agree? Okay. That is not an overcooking. That is not a vendor issue. That is a nationwide issue. It's the beef. The beef world is taking a huge hit right now. It's the lowest head count of cattle in America since 1951. They're feeding their beef, their cows, longer. The cows are getting heavier. The meat's getting tougher. The gristle's getting more prominent. There's so many restaurants right now that have taken beef, the prime rib, off their menus and aren't selling it anymore. So I had to ask myself a question. Should I do that? No. Don't come to work again, Anthony. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I want you to know that it is a tireless effort on our part. We've gone through 3 different vendors right now, testing different ones. Some of them costing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But it is a nationwide problem that we are experiencing right now. And I don't grow the cattle, just so everybody knows, okay? I don't grow them. Managing Culinary, just a few brief points here. I have 113 people that I have in my department. I have 13 vendors I deal with almost on a daily basis. 5 restaurants, 6 kitchens. But we all have, and we have almost 700 residents that we feed every day. That's 700 pallets that I'm trying to please every single day, if not more than once, twice, maybe 3 times. 700. That's almost impossible. But we're going to try. We're going to continue trying. That's just a lot of meals. What do we average? 20,000 meals, roughly? 700, that's a lot of pallets. But the vendors, those are the key right there. That's who we deal with. I deal with on a daily basis, almost every single vendor. The closing of Bay Restaurant, it's gonna happen. Just gonna happen. I've had conversations with many residents. Look, this kitchen is just not designed to cook. It's not designed to cook. It's not fresh. It's just not. I've written 5 menus myself to try to make that equipment work, and it's just not working. It's not. So what we're gonna do, and I've had residents come to me within the last couple of days, and right here, I'm a step ahead of you in some things. Every once in a while, I get lucky. But we are looking at we're looking at opening our venues, Bistro and JJ's additional day, if not more. But that's nothing that's in stone yet, but we are looking to do that. The Scoop, you know, I that little Asian woman, love her to death. She's trying very hard. We have gone through probably 3 or 4 different venues or vendors right now looking for product, the right product, more product, decent product that is cost effective as well. If you haven't seen it, we have the jams down there. We're focusing on local Florida items. That's just a little something we thought we'd bring in and see how residents like it. I bought a couple myself. I thought it was pretty good. I'm a Smucker's guy for the jam, but that's okay. Please don't hold that against me. The farmer's market, and someone made a comment, and I'll address that. Farmer's market is an idea, okay? Just an idea. We've done nothing for it yet. Logistically, we haven't done anything for it. Right now, it's just talk. I do want to do it, and with this lettuce debacle that's happening right now, probably going to play it safe and wait a little bit for it. But I will bring it here to John Knox eventually. New menu at Bistro, we talked about that briefly, 450 in the last 2 weeks. That's pretty good. You know, it's an easy menu to change. That's why it's changed twice already. It's just a real easy menu. Summertime, pool area. Everybody likes to be outside. I don't, but that's just me. Cranes, renovations. I was going to wait till after renovations for a new menu. Upon Raven's return, I told him I'd like one by the 1st of August. So we're working on that right now. Again, going back to that standardized menu. Salad bar, I'm looking for upgrades for it. So that's something in play as well. This is some of the food options that we've looked at. Anybody go to the last chef's table? Okay, if you look, do you recognize the one at the bottom right? That was the dessert. So we're looking for new food options. Vendors are great at trying to show us stuff they want us to buy. We're not buying it, okay? We're looking for stuff we want. But this is some of the things that they have provided for us. Weekly specials, we're gonna continue to run those at JJ's. Some of them may or may not be posted. You know, it's like a restaurant. Go to their website, the chef's special of the day, you don't see it on the website. You gotta come find out for yourself, right? Some of the specials that we tried, I put the snapper up there. I did that on purpose, so I can tell you, guess what? I fell short. I fell short on that one. The first 2, great success with it. Golden tile, one of my favorite fish. Copper River salmon. I did not go to Alaska on your dime. Let me just put that out there. You did not pay for a trip to Alaska for me, okay? But I do want to tell you, 2 successful specials. Third one, not so much. Let's talk. It's a simple statement. I think some of us have already had that opportunity, either email, calling, setting up a meeting to come to my office. I'm available. You just got to reach out to me and just set up a time. And I'm available. I'm here for you. I'm here to answer any questions, concerns. If you want to just sit there and, complain to me for 30 minutes, that's fine. I may or may not have the answer you want, but I will listen and I will make time. I have pretty full schedules, but I'll make adjustments to them, and we'll sit and talk. So I am not one to hide. I'm not one to run. I am available. Now, I was going to show you this last slide. Then I decided, maybe not. Oops, we're out of time. Look at that. Got to go to a meeting.
You're not going to get away that easy. Right behind you, Kathy. Right behind you.
I just wonder what POS stands for in POS system.
Point of sale. Point of sale goes anywhere from our tablets that they take the orders from. The POS system covers the register at the scoop. We also can, it's in part of the back office where we input, each plate, each special, the prices for them. So it covers all that. It's also, we'll have computer screens in the kitchen that the cooks can actually see. We have one of the consistent problems that we have is missing stuff off checks or tickets, right? Well, once they're rang in, the cooks can see everything. I'm also going to have a screen in front so that a manager or a chef can walk up and see everything that they're working on. Or ask them, I don't see a filet on, but it's up here. Where is that? So it's a whole checks and balance. That's what POS is.
Right here, Anthony.
Anthony, earlier you said you were going to touch on vegetables.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. So the vegetable whole debacle that's happening right now, there was Libby Farms? Yes. So there was a letter wrote to them apologizing for calling them out like that. It had nothing to do with them. So they traced it back to Taco Bell. We all love Taco Bell. And it was lettuce that was purchased, produce that was purchased from Mexico. That's where that all came back down to. So we have a standard process of our vendors. Product that is taken from the United States is tested on site. Once it's harvested, it'll be tested before it leaves the property. It's tested when it comes to the facility, and it's tested one more time before it leaves the facility to come to us. So if in fact they did test it before it hit our door and it was bad, whatever they had gotten from that lot is all be destroyed. It's their dime, not ours. So we have a strenuous action plan in place for that. So that's why I'm always concerned, but I'm trusting that we're good, that we're in good hands right now.
Overall, I love being here and enjoying the food at John Knox. So I just want to say that to begin with. My question has to do with food additives. As I get older, and I'm more conscious of triggers that affect my GI tract. And when you're not fixing your own food at home and knowing what's going into it, that can occasionally happen. So is there an intentional effort to avoid things like accent, flavor enhancers, MSG? Because I know in prepackaged, let's say, gravy mixes, I'm always studying the ingredients when I shop at a store, the little bit that I do shop now. So is there an intentional effort to avoid things in food that could be those triggers for those of us that are prone to GI issues sometimes?
Yes and no. I've seen the comments, and I've talked to different residents about that. Yes, there is, because obviously we want to care for your needs. No, there isn't, just for the fact that, independent has different rules. But that doesn't mean that we don't try to accommodate everybody. So if I can get a gravy mix that doesn't have MSG or accent or anything like that, and it's still a good gravy mix, then why wouldn't I use it? So I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to put that out there that this is my number one concern right now, but it is something that's in part while we're working on the new menus.
Hi, my main background is finance, and I didn't see a whole lot in your talk about profitability of the menus. I worked with 2 restaurants, granted it was the owners, and they put in systems that looked at the profitability to the restaurant on each of the items. They had an income statement each day as to each part of the operation. And while we are a nonprofit, it's the overall profitability, or I should say the expense side of it, is governed by the general budget. And running a profitable operation, you'd have much more of an ability to offer various types of menu.
So what exactly are you asking?
Do you use finance at all or profitability in choosing your menus? And how do you follow it?
So the answer to your question is yes. We use there's different programs that we have that we use, from a spend down to, month end numbers, things like that. But when we're looking at actual menus, and we'll say I bring in a steak, okay, that costs me, and it's 8 ounces, but it costs me $60 per pound, right? What I'm gonna do is I'll probably, and it's an 8-ounce portion, so that's half the cost of $30, say $32, whatever the case is. I'm only margining it to cover my cost, with maybe an extra $1 or $2 that covers my labor, that covers the transport, the fuel charges, things like that. And then it offsets, and I'll tell you what it offsets, okay? If I charge a little extra for what I paid for it, what offsets it is, we'll use filet as an example, okay? I raised the price of filet, right? You remember that? Everybody remember that? Oh yeah, I know you do. Don't, I recently went to a restaurant in Lake Mary, same steak, 7 ounces, I paid $78 for. Now, am I charging correctly for what I'm paying for? No. But if I use something else to offset the cost, then at the end of the year, it still evens out. So we do it based on what we're paying for it. And that's our plate cost. We're not looking at it as a whole department. We're looking at plate cost for each item. That's how we're at that. That's what we're looking at when we're buying product. Does that help?
It helps. I was trying to look at every day having a P&L for your.
No, and that's one thing I'm not really going to go into, is the financials that I look at. Just overall, again, we're just looking at what we decide to purchase as far as product, and what we're going to base the cost off of it. And again, not, as you stated, nonprofit. I'm not here to make money. That's not what we're here to do. We're just trying to. I may charge a little extra for something that costs a little extra, but in doing so, and I'll use Wagyu as an example. I bring in a Wagyu ribeye. I'm going to charge a little extra for it, but it also is just going to cover my cost. Does that make sense? Does that help? Sure.
Two restaurants I work with have got a lot more customer satisfaction and also profitability, and they changed their menu basically because they could see what was selling and very quickly adapt either the price and or the basic menu.
Well, we use the same thing. Sandy at Oak Park does like, for example, P-mixes. She runs P-mix for me. She tells me what sells, what the cost is, what kind of sales it generated. Based on those, I can pick and choose what I want to keep off a menu, and that helps us determine the next menu. So it's kind of in the same sense. But when you're talking about P&Ls, you're still talking from, basically down to your bottom line, which also includes your labor and your, obviously your food costs, your supply costs. You're talking all those different costs. We're just going to look at plates right now when it comes to actual food.
You can look at it in the future, but I've seen it work very, very effectively.
Agreed. I have too. I definitely have.
Anthony, with the closing of the Bay restaurant, are the menu items that are currently in the Bay, are they going to travel to the other venues? Or
Maybe at one point or another. The answer is no at this time. We're not going to take that menu and integrate it into any other menu at this time. Now, will you see some of
meals.
Will you see some of those items? Possibly. Will we be preparing them in a better equipped kitchen? Yes.
What about the Bay ribeye? Everybody's favorite before you came. they couldn't do it because it made the kitchen catch on fire, so.
Oh, yes, and that's why I'm glad they took it
Yeah.
out.
But can they move it to some other restaurant?
Well, I think that we're currently looking at that. That's part of a new menu that we have, but it won't be, it depends on what location we're gonna put it at. Again, we're trying to keep them separate.
It will still be the Bay ribeye?
We're looking at a ribeye right now for JJ's to begin with.
Doesn't really have anything to do with the food, but in the grill, there are times when it is so cold, I cannot enjoy the food. And I wonder if there's anything about that can be done.
All we can do is submit work requests for it. So, so you're the one that makes the guys in the kitchen cooking food sweat so much. I get it, okay. Mm-hmm. I guess I can invest into a portable heater for you.
We're hot.
Okay, Anthony. This is a different vegetable question, but it was my original thought. Is there any opportunity to increase the availability of actual vegetables, not just salad? Because you can't really get many in the grill, and you can't get them at bistro, and we're losing the bay. So we have to. My husband has to put on pants and a collared shirt for me to get my vegetables.
I hate putting on pants too. Trust me, it's terrible. So the answer to your question is, at this moment, I'm going to say no, and I'll explain why. So one of the big things, and we discussed this briefly, is vegetables are a thorn in my side. Okay, and the reason why is the cafeteria mentality. So we have certain vegetables. Say we have 5, 6 different vegetables. 3 of them sit in water. Tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't. 3 of them sit in water. So for us to provide more additional vegetables, that's the problem that I see happening. Whereas if we can get 3 right, and when I say we, I mean we, because I have to be part of this. I have an idea. I have to make sure I'm there to see it work. If it doesn't work, I'll try it again somehow the other way. But that's where we run into the problem with so many different sides, is some of it will just sit in a heat well. And that's kind of what we want to get away from, because we don't have cafeterias. I really want us to understand we don't have dining rooms either. Okay? We don't have those. Those terms are used for senior living, for not retirement communities. They're used for ALs. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but ALs and skilled nursing and memory care. We have restaurants. Restaurants shouldn't be sitting in hot water. They should be done to order. That's how your food does. That's when you go to, Ruth Chris. They do all their stuff to order. They don't have it sitting there, and we shouldn't either. We're set up like a cafeteria, but that's just, in my opinion, that's just taking the shortcut, and I don't want to do that. So, answer your question is no at this point. That's not the thought process I have. Does that make sense? Does that help? I know it's a terrible thing to have to say, but I've got to get the vegetables we have right now, I've got to get them done right before I continue to add anything. The salad bar? No, we won't be able to do that. Because right now, if you look at the bistro, take that for an example, one of the complaints I'm getting is, somebody please move that pool table. But we have people that play pool there. So we won't be able to put a salad bar either one. Not enough room.
Any others? Last call.
Last call for alcohol. Here we go. Oh, you want to be my closer? Okay.
I'll be your closer.
Let's see if we get this one. Oh, you missed your chance. Your son's question. Sorry, last one right there.
Speaking of vegetables, have you sourced locally? I mean, a lot of the restaurants that we enjoy going out when we leave the campus, the guy goes out on Monday to the farmers and looks and sees what's there, be it the cows or the pigs or the vegetables, and then he plans his menu for the week. Now, I know we can't do that on a regular basis, but there are local places that have fresh produce in bulk. I just think that, you can't tell me those beans up at Bay are not frozen.
So I've worked in a couple different restaurants where that was a luxury that I had. I would go to, and I did this in San Francisco, I did this in Boston, where I would go to the fish market and buy my seafood for the day, and that was what I'd make a menu off of. Same thing with farmers market. But for me, and I can only attest for my experience, is I was only doing 50 covers I had a day. That's it. When you're talking about 500 meals a day, it's almost impossible to try to get there. Do I have a talented chef who can do that for me? Yes. Is my staff in the kitchen, the cook-wise, talented enough to get it done? Not yet. I got good cooks in there, but they're not as skilled as we are going to prepare them to be. Okay, but I love that idea. I really do, because I'd be the one out there shopping. Oh, snuck in, didn't you?
This is my son's question.
All right,
Okay.
Bring it on. Let's go.
Okay. Our fee goes up every year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Okay. The fee goes up every year, right? The food prices have gone up every year, or every time we get a menu. Why haven't our food budget gone up?
So I can answer that one real simple. That's outside my wheelhouse. I don't have control over that. No. I wish I could, but that's above my pay grade. It does make sense. It's above my pay grade. I don't have control over that. I don't know. The only reason food has gone up, and it's gone up since I've been here, was because it was never costed. And again, we can go every day, we can go back to crab legs. $61 a pound I was paying, serving 10 ounces of time and charging $28.95. Math doesn't make sense. So but as far as your allowance for it, I don't know. I understand. That's a great question. It really is. Unfortunately, nope, nope, not saying that at all. Thank you, Candace, for your time. I am. Thank you.